This one skill decides your success, so control your emotions, or they will control your future. Introduction.
Welcome to Mastering Emotional Intelligence, the key to success. I'm Dr. Julian Vance, and I want to be very clear from the beginning. This book is not about being soft, and it's not about controlling others. It's about gaining power, the kind of power that starts inside. Because until you learn to manage your emotions will manage you. Think about it. How many decisions have you made out of fear? How many relationships have suffered because you couldn't express what you felt? How many opportunities have slipped by because you didn't trust your instincts or couldn't read the room? This audiobook is your blueprint to change that. We'll break down the science, the habits, the mindset, and the strategies that high performers, leaders, and emotionally intelligent people use every single day. By the end of this journey, you'll not only understand your emotions, you'll own them. So, take a deep breath. You're about to unlock the most powerful part of your mind. Welcome to Emotional Mastery. Asterisk. Chapter 1. The Hidden Power of Emotions. Understand how emotions silently shape your thoughts, decisions, and daily habits without you realizing it. The invisible force that governs your life. Sarah sits at her desk, staring at her computer screen. She has a presentation to prepare for tomorrow's board meeting, but something feels off. Her chest feels tight, her mind keeps wandering, and she finds herself checking her phone every few minutes. She attributes this to procrastination. But what she doesn't realize is that a brief conversation with her manager 3 hours ago triggered a cascade of emotions that are now silently directing her behavior, thoughts, and even her physical responses. This is the hidden power of emotions at work, an invisible force that shapes every aspect of our lives, often without our conscious awareness. While we like to think we're rational beings making logical decisions, the truth is far more complex and fascinating. Our emotions are constantly operating beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts, coloring our perceptions, and driving our actions in ways we rarely recognize. The emotional operating system. Think of emotions as your brain's operating system, the fundamental software that runs in the background of your consciousness. Just as your computer's operating system manages all the programs and processes without you seeing most of its work, your emotional system continuously processes information, makes rapid assessments, and influences your behavior without requiring your conscious attention. This emotional operating system evolved over millions of years to help our ancestors survive. When a rustling bush might contain a predator, those who could quickly feel fear and react accordingly were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. Today, while we face different challenges, this same system continues to operate, making split-second evaluations about everything from the safety of a dark parking lot to the trustworthiness of a new colleague. The remarkable thing about this system is its speed and efficiency. Research shows that emotional responses occur within 17 milliseconds of encountering a stimulus, faster than conscious thought. This means that by the time you're aware of thinking about something, your emotional system has already made its assessment and begun influencing your response. The anatomy of emotional influence. To understand how emotions shape our lives, we need to explore the 3 primary ways they exert their influence: through our thoughts, our decisions, and our behavioral patterns. Emotional influence on thoughts. Our emotions act as a lens through which we interpret the world. When you're in a positive emotional state, you're more likely to notice opportunities, give others the benefit of the doubt, and interpret ambiguous situations optimistically. Conversely, when you're experiencing negative emotions, you're more prone to seeing threats, focusing on problems, and interpreting neutral events as potentially harmful. Consider how your thoughts change when you're feeling different emotions. When you're happy, that challenging project at work might seem like an exciting opportunity to showcase your skills. When you're anxious, the same project might appear as an overwhelming burden that could expose your inadequacies. The project hasn't changed. Your emotional state has altered your perception of it. Emotional influence on behavioral patterns. Our emotions don't just influence individual thoughts and decisions. They shape our ongoing behavioral patterns and habits. These patterns often become so automatic that we don't recognize their emotional origins. Take the example of someone who consistently arrives early to meetings. This behavior might stem from anxiety about being late and the associated feelings of embarrassment or judgment. Over time, this emotional response becomes translated into a behavioral pattern that operates automatically without conscious emotional awareness. Similarly, our communication styles, work habits, social preferences, and even our leisure activities are all influenced by our emotional patterns. Someone who frequently experiences social anxiety might develop a habit of avoiding networking events, while someone who finds joy in helping others might naturally gravitate toward collaborative projects. The emotional iceberg. One of the most important concepts in understanding emotional influence is the emotional iceberg model. Just as only a small portion of an iceberg is visible above water, only a small fraction of our emotional experience reaches conscious awareness. The vast majority of our emotional processing happens below the surface of consciousness. The visible portion of the iceberg represents our conscious emotional experiences, the feelings we're aware of and can easily identify. These might include obvious emotions like excitement before a vacation or frustration during a traffic jam. Below the surface lies a much larger realm of emotional processing that influences us constantly without our awareness. This includes subtle emotional responses to environmental cues, unconscious emotional memories triggered by current situations, and the emotional undertones that color our perception of events. For example, you might consciously feel neutral about a new coworker, but unconsciously, they might remind you of someone from your past who betrayed your trust. This unconscious emotional association could influence your behavior toward them, perhaps making you slightly more guarded or less collaborative, without you understanding why. The emotional contagion effect. Another fascinating aspect of emotional influence is how emotions spread between people. Emotional contagion is the phenomenon where we unconsciously mimic and then experience the emotions of those around us. This happens through subtle cues like facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and even breathing patterns. When you walk into a room where people are laughing and enjoying themselves, you're likely to feel more positive, even if you don't know what they're laughing about. Conversely, entering a space where people are stressed or anxious can quickly dampen your mood. This emotional contagion operates so quickly and subtly that we rarely notice it happening. Understanding emotional contagion helps explain why some people seem to naturally create positive environments while others seem to drain energy from a room. It also highlights the importance of emotional awareness in leadership roles, as leaders' emotional states can significantly impact their team's morale and performance. The memory-emotion connection. Our emotions and memories are intimately connected in ways that profoundly influence our daily experiences. Emotional events are more likely to be remembered vividly and for longer periods. This is why you can probably recall exactly where you were during significant emotional events in your life, while routine, emotionally neutral days blend together and fade from memory. This memory-emotion connection means that our past emotional experiences continuously influence our present responses. A presentation that went poorly years ago might still trigger anxiety when you face similar situations today. A moment of recognition from a teacher in childhood might continue to motivate you to seek achievement in your adult career. These emotional memories don't just influence our conscious recollections. They create unconscious associations that shape our automatic responses to current situations. Understanding this connection helps explain why certain situations, people, or environments can trigger unexpectedly strong emotional reactions. The physical manifestation of hidden emotions. Our emotions don't exist only in our minds. They manifest physically in our bodies in ways that can influence our behavior and well-being. The field of embodied cognition shows that our physical states and our emotional states are deeply interconnected. When we experience emotions, our bodies respond with changes in heart rate, breathing, muscle tension, posture, and facial expressions. These physical changes aren't just side effects of emotions. They can actually influence our emotional states and subsequent behavior. For instance, research has shown that people who are asked to hold a pen in their teeth, forcing a smile-like expression, rate cartoons as funnier than those who hold the pen with their lips, preventing smiling. This demonstrates how physical states can influence emotional experiences, creating a feedback loop between body and mind. Understanding this connection helps explain why we might feel inexplicably tired after a day of hidden stress, why certain postures make us feel more confident, or why breathing exercises can effectively manage anxiety. Our bodies are constantly communicating with our emotional systems, providing information that influences our thoughts and behaviors. The cultural dimension of emotional influence. The way emotions influence our lives is also shaped by cultural factors. Different cultures have varying norms about emotional expression, different emotional vocabularies, and different beliefs about the role emotions should play in decision-making and behavior. In some cultures, emotional restraint is valued, leading people to develop habits of suppressing or minimizing emotional expression. In others, emotional expressiveness is encouraged, leading to more open acknowledgement of emotional influences. These cultural patterns shape not just how we express emotions, but how we experience and respond to them. Understanding the cultural dimension of emotional influence is crucial in our increasingly connected world. What might seem like a rational disagreement in a business meeting could actually be rooted in different cultural approaches to emotional expression and interpretation. Breaking the automatic patterns. The first step in mastering emotional intelligence is becoming aware of these hidden emotional influences. This awareness doesn't mean we need to eliminate or control all emotional responses. That would be neither possible nor desirable. Instead, it means developing the ability to recognize when emotions are influencing our thoughts and behaviors, and choosing more consciously how to respond. This process begins with mindful observation. Throughout your day, you can begin to notice the subtle emotional currents that influence your experiences. How does your mood change in different environments? What emotions arise when you interact with different people? How do your thoughts and perceptions shift with your emotional state? As you develop this awareness, you'll begin to see patterns in your emotional responses. You might notice that you consistently feel anxious before speaking in meetings, or that you tend to make more impulsive decisions when you're excited. These patterns, once recognized, become opportunities for growth and change. The path forward. The hidden power of emotions is neither good nor bad. It's simply a fundamental aspect of human experience. By understanding how emotions silently shape our thoughts, decisions, and daily habits, we can begin to work with our emotional systems rather than being unconsciously driven by them. This awareness opens up possibilities for more intentional living. Instead of being puzzled by our own reactions and behaviors, we can begin to understand the emotional logic behind them. Instead of being at the mercy of our emotional impulses, we can learn to recognize and respond to them skillfully. The journey of emotional intelligence begins with this recognition of the hidden power of emotions. As we develop this awareness, we create space for choice in our responses. We begin to move from being unconsciously influenced by our emotions to consciously partnering with them in creating the life we want to live. In the chapters that follow, we'll explore specific strategies for developing this emotional awareness and learn practical techniques for working skillfully with our emotional experiences. But it all begins here, with the recognition that emotions are not just occasional visitors to our consciousness. They're the constant, largely invisible force that shapes every aspect of our human experience. The question is not whether emotions will influence your life. They already do, every moment of every day. The question is whether you will develop the awareness to recognize this influence and the skills to work with it consciously and effectively. That journey begins with understanding the hidden power of emotions and accepting it as a fundamental aspect of what it means to be human. This chapter serves as the foundation for understanding emotional intelligence. In the next chapter, we'll explore specific techniques for developing emotional awareness and begin the practical work of building your emotional intelligence skills. Chapter 2. Self-awareness is your superpower. Learn how to recognize your emotional triggers and gain full control over your inner world. The foundation of emotional mastery. In the bustling corridors of corporate offices and the quiet corners of home offices where remote work unfolds, there exists a silent superpower that most professionals never fully develop: self-awareness. This isn't just another buzzword thrown around in leadership seminars or self-help books. Self-awareness is the bedrock upon which all emotional intelligence is built, and it's the key that unlocks your potential for unprecedented success in your career and personal life. Imagine walking into a high-stakes meeting where tensions are running high, deadlines are looming, and personalities are clashing. While others around you react impulsively to the pressure, you remain centered, observant, and strategically responsive. You notice the subtle shift in your colleague's tone that signals frustration before it escalates. You feel your own stress levels rising, but catch yourself before it affects your decision-making. You recognize the moment when the room's energy shifts from collaborative to defensive, and you know exactly how to navigate it. This isn't superhuman ability, it's self-awareness in action. Self-awareness is your ability to recognize and understand your emotions as they occur, to comprehend why you feel what you feel, and to understand how your emotions influence your thoughts and behaviors. It's the difference between being driven by your emotions and being informed by them. When you master self-awareness, you transform from a reactive participant in your own life to a proactive architect of your success. The anatomy of self-awareness. Self-awareness operates on multiple levels, each building upon the other to create a comprehensive understanding of your inner world. The first level is emotional awareness, the ability to recognize your emotions as they arise. This might sound simple, but research shows that most people can only identify their emotions accurately about 36% of the time. We've become so disconnected from our emotional landscape that we often mistake anxiety for excitement, frustration for anger, or disappointment for sadness. The second level is accurate self-assessment, understanding your strengths, weaknesses, values, and motivations. This goes beyond surface-level acknowledgement to deep, honest evaluation of who you are and why you act the way you do. It's the difference between saying, "I'm good with people," and understanding, "I excel at building rapport in one-on-one situations, but I struggle with confidence when presenting to large groups because I fear judgment and have perfectionist tendencies." The third level is self-confidence, having a strong sense of self-worth and capabilities based on realistic self-assessment. This isn't false bravado or inflated ego. It's a grounded confidence that comes from truly knowing yourself, including your limitations, and being comfortable with your authentic self. The workplace revolution of self-awareness. In today's professional landscape, self-awareness isn't just an asset, it's a necessity. The most successful leaders and employees share one common trait. They understand themselves deeply and use this understanding to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics, make better decisions, and inspire others. Consider Sarah, a marketing director who struggled with team meetings. She would often leave feeling frustrated and unheard, which affected her performance and relationships. Through developing self-awareness, she recognized that her frustration stemmed from her communication style. She was an internal processor who needed time to formulate thoughtful responses, while her colleagues were external processors who thought out loud. Once she understood this about herself, she began preparing key points before meetings and asked for agenda items in advance. She also learned to signal when she needed a moment to process. That's an interesting point. Let me think about that for a moment. This simple shift, born from self-awareness, transformed her effectiveness and confidence in meetings. Self-awareness also revolutionizes decision-making. When you understand your emotional patterns, you can identify when you're making decisions from a place of fear, excitement, pressure, or clarity. You learn to recognize when you're in an optimal state for different types of decisions. Strategic planning might be best done when you're calm and focused, while creative brainstorming might flow better when you're energized and open. Identifying your emotional triggers. Emotional triggers are specific situations, people, or events that consistently provoke strong emotional responses in you. These triggers often operate below the level of conscious awareness, causing you to react automatically rather than respond thoughtfully. Mastering self-awareness means identifying these triggers and understanding the deeper needs, fears, or values they represent. Common workplace triggers include feeling micromanaged, being interrupted during focused work, receiving criticism, being excluded from important decisions, or dealing with unclear expectations. But your triggers are unique to you, shaped by your personal history, values, and experiences. To identify your triggers, start by paying attention to moments when you feel a sudden shift in your emotional state. Notice when you feel your jaw tighten, your breathing change, or your inner voice become critical. These physical and mental cues are your early warning system. Keep a trigger journal for 2 weeks, noting situations that provoke strong reactions and the specific elements that set you off. For example, you might notice that you feel triggered not just by criticism, but specifically by criticism delivered in front of others. The deeper trigger isn't the feedback itself. It's the public nature of it that threatens your need for respect and competence. Understanding this distinction allows you to address the root cause rather than just the surface reaction. The neuroscience of self-awareness. Understanding the brain science behind self-awareness gives you powerful tools for developing this crucial skill. The prefrontal cortex, often called the brain CEO, is responsible for executive functions, including self-awareness. This region allows you to observe your thoughts and emotions rather than being consumed by them. It's what enables you to think about your thinking, a capability called metacognition. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, triggers emotional responses before the prefrontal cortex can evaluate whether the threat is real. This is why you might feel angry or anxious before you consciously understand why. Self-awareness training strengthens the connection between these brain regions, allowing you to pause between trigger and response. This pause, what Viktor Frankl called the space between stimulus and response, is where your freedom and power lie. In that space, you can choose your response rather than being driven by automatic reactions. Developing this capacity requires practice, but the neuroscience shows us that the brain is remarkably plastic. You can literally rewire your neural pathways to become more self-aware. Practical techniques for developing self-awareness. Building self-awareness is like developing any skill. It requires consistent practice and the right techniques. Here are proven methods that you can implement immediately. The STOP technique. When you notice emotional activation, use this acronym. Stop what you're doing, take a breath, observe what you're feeling physically and emotionally, and proceed with awareness. This simple technique creates the crucial pause between trigger and response. Body scanning. Your body often signals emotional changes before your mind catches up. Develop the habit of periodically scanning your body from head to toe, noticing areas of tension, your breathing pattern, and your overall energy level. These physical cues provide valuable emotional information. The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise. When you feel overwhelmed or triggered, ground yourself by identifying 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This technique brings you back to the present moment and out of emotional reactivity. Regular check-ins. Set random alarms on your phone 3 times a day. When they go off, pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking? What does my body feel like? This builds the habit of self-observation. The emotion wheel. Use an emotion wheel to expand your emotional vocabulary. Instead of defaulting to good, bad, stressed, or fine, learn to identify specific emotions like anticipatory, overwhelmed, curious, or disappointed. Precision in emotional labeling increases self-awareness and emotional regulation. Understanding your values and motivations. Self-awareness extends beyond emotions to understanding your core values and motivations. Values are your fundamental beliefs about what's important in life. They drive your behavior and influence your emotional responses. When your actions align with your values, you feel energized and authentic. When they conflict, you experience internal tension and stress. Many people have never consciously identified their values, instead operating from inherited or assumed value systems. To discover your true values, reflect on moments when you felt most alive, engaged, and proud. What values were you honoring in those moments? Also consider times when you felt angry or frustrated. Often these emotions signal that one of your values is being violated. Common workplace values include autonomy, recognition, growth, security, collaboration, excellence, and impact. Understanding your top 5 values helps you make better career decisions, set appropriate boundaries, and communicate your needs effectively. Your motivations, the deeper drives behind your actions, are equally important. Are you motivated by achievement, affiliation, or power? Do you seek stability or adventure? Understanding your motivational patterns helps you choose roles and environments where you'll naturally thrive. The role of feedback in self-awareness. One of the biggest blind spots in self-awareness is how others perceive us. We all have unconscious behaviors and patterns that affect others, but remain invisible to us. Seeking and receiving feedback is crucial for developing complete self-awareness. However, not all feedback is created equal. Effective feedback for self-awareness development should be specific, behavioral, and delivered by someone who has observed you in various contexts. Generic feedback like you're too aggressive or you need to communicate better isn't helpful. Useful feedback sounds like, in yesterday's meeting, when Jim presented his idea, you interrupted him twice and your tone became sharp. I noticed the room tension increase, and Jim seemed to shut down after that. Create a feedback system by identifying 3 to 5 people who interact with you regularly and asking them to provide specific observations about your behavior and its impact. Make it safe for them to be honest by responding with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Remember, feedback is information, not truth. It's one person's perspective, but it's valuable data for understanding how you're perceived. Overcoming self-awareness obstacles. Several common obstacles can impede self-awareness development. The first is the fundamental attribution error, the tendency to attribute our own behavior to external circumstances while attributing others' behavior to their character. When you're late, it's because traffic was bad. When someone else is late, they're disorganized. This bias prevents accurate self-assessment. Another obstacle is emotional numbing, the unconscious habit of suppressing emotions to avoid discomfort. Many professionals develop this pattern as a coping mechanism, but it limits self-awareness and ultimately reduces effectiveness. Emotions provide valuable information about your needs, values, and environment. Learning to feel and process emotions rather than avoiding them is crucial for self-awareness. The perfectionist trap also hinders self-awareness. Perfectionism creates a need to appear flawless, which conflicts with the honest self-assessment required for self-awareness. Remember that self-awareness isn't about being perfect. It's about being accurate and authentic, creating your personal self-awareness practice. Developing self-awareness requires intentional practice. Create a daily routine that includes moments of self-reflection and observation. This might include a brief morning intention-setting practice, midday check-ins, and evening reflection. Journaling is one of the most powerful tools for building self-awareness. Spend 10 to 15 minutes daily writing about your experiences, emotions, and observations. Focus on patterns rather than just events. What situations consistently energize you? What types of interactions drain you? What emotional patterns do you notice? Meditation and mindfulness practices also develop self-awareness by training your ability to observe thoughts and emotions without being swept away by them. Even 5 minutes of daily mindfulness practice can significantly increase your self-awareness over time. The ripple effect of self-awareness. As you develop self-awareness, you'll notice its impact extending far beyond your immediate experience. Your relationships improve because you're more authentic and less reactive. Your decision-making becomes more aligned with your values and goals. Your leadership effectiveness increases because you model emotional intelligence and create psychological safety for others. Self-awareness also enhances your empathy and social awareness, the other components of emotional intelligence. When you understand your own emotional patterns, you become more attuned to others' emotional states. You recognize projection when you're attributing your feelings to others and can respond more appropriately. Self-awareness is indeed your superpower because it's the foundation for all other emotional intelligence skills. It's the key that unlocks your potential for authentic success, meaningful relationships, and personal fulfillment. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to use this self-awareness to master self-regulation, the ability to manage your emotions effectively rather than being controlled by them. Remember, developing self-awareness is not a destination, but a journey. Each day offers new opportunities to observe yourself, learn from your experiences, and grow in understanding. Embrace this process with curiosity and compassion, knowing that every step toward greater self-awareness is a step toward unlocking your full potential. This chapter provides the foundation for emotional intelligence mastery. In the following chapters, we'll build upon this self-awareness to develop the skills of self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills that will transform your professional and personal success. Chapter 3. Mastering Self-Control. Train yourself to stay calm under pressure and respond with purpose, not impulse. In the fast-paced world of modern work, where deadlines loom large and tensions run high, the ability to maintain composure under pressure has become one of the most valuable skills a professional can possess. Self-control is not about suppressing emotions or becoming a robot in the workplace. Rather, it's about developing the mental discipline to pause, assess, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. This chapter will guide you through the essential practices and mindsets that will help you master this crucial aspect of emotional intelligence. The foundation of self-control begins with understanding the physiological and psychological processes that occur when we face stressful situations. When pressure mounts, our bodies naturally activate what scientists call the fight or flight response. This ancient survival mechanism floods our system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing us to either confront danger or flee from it. While this response served our ancestors well when facing physical threats, it can be counterproductive in modern workplace scenarios where thoughtful decision-making is required. Consider the last time you received harsh criticism from a supervisor or found yourself in a heated disagreement with a colleague. Your heart likely began racing, your muscles tensed, and your breathing became shallow. These physical sensations are normal, but they signal that your rational mind is being hijacked by your emotional brain. The key to mastering self-control lies in recognizing these early warning signs and implementing strategies to regain your composure before making decisions or taking action. The first step in developing self-control is cultivating self-awareness. This means becoming intimately familiar with your personal stress triggers and the specific ways your body responds to pressure. Some people experience tension in their shoulders, others feel their jaw clench, and still others notice their voice becoming higher or faster. By identifying your unique stress signatures, you can catch yourself in the early stages of emotional escalation and take corrective action before your reactions become destructive. Creating a personal stress inventory is an invaluable exercise in building this awareness. Take time to reflect on situations that consistently trigger strong emotional responses in you. Perhaps it's being interrupted during presentations, receiving last-minute changes to projects you've worked hard on, or dealing with colleagues who don't follow through on commitments. Write down these triggers and note the physical sensations, thoughts, and emotions that typically accompany them. This inventory becomes your early warning system, helping you recognize when you're entering emotional territory that requires careful navigation. Once you've identified your triggers, the next step is developing a toolkit of techniques to maintain your composure. The most fundamental of these is conscious breathing. When we're stressed, our breathing becomes shallow and rapid, which actually amplifies our anxiety and makes clear thinking more difficult. By deliberately slowing and deepening your breath, you can activate your body's relaxation response and create space between stimulus and response. The technique is simple but powerful. When you notice stress building, take a slow, deep breath in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold it for a count of 4. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. This pattern, often called box breathing, helps regulate your nervous system and provide the moment of pause that can prevent reactive behavior. Practice this technique regularly, not just during stressful moments, so it becomes second nature when you need it most. Another crucial element of self-control is learning to reframe challenging situations. Our emotional responses are largely determined not by events themselves, but by how we interpret those events. When a colleague criticizes your work, you can choose to interpret it as a personal attack that requires defensive action, or you can view it as valuable feedback that will help you improve. When a project deadline is moved up unexpectedly, you can see it as an impossible burden or as an opportunity to demonstrate your ability to perform under pressure. This reframing process requires practice and conscious effort. Begin by questioning your initial interpretation of stressful events. Ask yourself, is there another way to look at this situation? What would I tell a friend who is facing the same challenge? How might this difficulty actually benefit me in the long run? By consistently practicing this mental flexibility, you'll find that situations that once seemed overwhelming become manageable challenges that you can approach with confidence. The concept of the pause is central to mastering self-control. In high-pressure situations, there's often an urgency to respond immediately, but this urgency is usually more perceived than real. Most workplace situations can tolerate a brief pause while you collect your thoughts and choose your response carefully. This pause might be as simple as taking a deep breath, counting to 5, or saying, "That's an interesting point. Let me think about that for a moment." During this pause, you can engage what psychologists call your wise mind, the part of your consciousness that integrates both rational thought and emotional wisdom. Your wise mind considers not just the immediate situation, but also the long-term consequences of your actions. It asks questions like, what outcome am I trying to achieve? How will my response affect my relationships with colleagues? What would the most professional version of myself do in this situation? Physical techniques can also play a crucial role in maintaining self-control. Progressive muscle relaxation, where you systematically tense and then release different muscle groups, can help discharge physical tension and restore calm. Similarly, grounding techniques, such as focusing on the feeling of your feet on the floor or the temperature of the air on your skin, can help anchor you in the present moment and prevent your mind from spiraling into worst-case scenarios. The workplace environment itself can be optimized to support self-control. Keep items nearby that help you maintain perspective, such as a meaningful photo, an inspirational quote, or a small object that reminds you of your values. Some professionals find it helpful to have a reset ritual, perhaps stepping outside for a few minutes of fresh air, doing some light stretching, or listening to a calming piece of music that helps them return to a state of emotional equilibrium. Understanding the difference between responding and reacting is fundamental to self-control. Reacting is immediate, automatic, and often driven by emotion. It's the sharp retort to a colleague's criticism, the defensive explanation when questioned about a mistake, or the frustrated sigh when plans change unexpectedly. Responding, on the other hand, is thoughtful, intentional, and aligned with your values and goals. It considers the impact of your words and actions on others and on your long-term objectives. To develop your responding skills, practice the 24-hour rule for non-urgent communications. When you receive an email or message that triggers a strong emotional response, draft your reply if you need to process your thoughts, but don't send it immediately. Sleep on it and revisit your response the next day. You'll often find that your perspective has shifted, and you can craft a more thoughtful, professional response that serves your interests better than your initial emotional reaction would have. Self-control also involves managing your energy and attention strategically. Recognize that your capacity for self-regulation is not unlimited. It's like a muscle that can become fatigued with overuse. This means being strategic about when and where you exert maximum self-control. If you know you have a challenging meeting in the afternoon, you might choose to tackle routine tasks in the morning to preserve your emotional energy for when it's needed most. Building self-control is also about developing what psychologists call distress tolerance, the ability to survive crisis situations without making them worse through impulsive actions. This skill is particularly valuable in high-stakes professional environments where the temptation to act quickly can lead to poor decisions. Distress tolerance involves accepting that some level of discomfort is temporary and manageable, rather than something that must be eliminated immediately. The practice of mindfulness can significantly enhance your self-control capabilities. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment, observing your thoughts and emotions as they arise without immediately acting on them. Regular mindfulness practice, even just 5 minutes of focused attention each day, can strengthen your ability to notice emotional triggers before they overwhelm you and create space for more thoughtful responses. Consider implementing a daily mindfulness routine that fits your schedule and preferences. This might involve meditation, mindful walking, or simply taking a few minutes to eat your lunch without distractions, focusing fully on the experience of eating. The key is consistency rather than duration. Regular practice of even brief mindfulness exercises can yield significant improvements in your ability to remain calm under pressure. Self-control in the workplace also requires setting and maintaining appropriate boundaries. This means knowing when to say no to additional responsibilities when you're already at capacity, when to seek support rather than struggling alone, and when to step away from situations that are becoming too emotionally charged to handle productively. Boundaries aren't about being selfish or uncooperative. They're about preserving your ability to contribute effectively over the long term. As you develop your self-control skills, remember that perfection isn't the goal. Everyone has moments when they react rather than respond, when pressure gets the better of them, or when they say something they later regret. The key is to learn from these experiences rather than berating yourself for them. After a situation where you didn't handle things as well as you'd have liked, take time to reflect on what happened, what you might do differently next time, and what this experience can teach you about your own emotional patterns. The journey to mastering self-control is ongoing, requiring patience, practice, and self-compassion. As you consistently apply these principles and techniques, you'll find that your ability to remain calm under pressure becomes more natural and automatic. You'll discover that you can maintain your professional composure even in the most challenging circumstances, making decisions that align with your values and serve your long-term interests rather than simply providing immediate emotional relief. Ultimately, mastering self-control is about becoming the author of your own professional story rather than being at the mercy of external circumstances and internal impulses. It's about developing the confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever challenges come your way with grace, wisdom, and purpose. This mastery will not only enhance your own career success, but also inspire confidence in those around you, making you a more effective leader and a more valued colleague.